Hey guys, what's up? In today's video I want to talk a little bit about Star Wars The Last Jedi, which I've seen yesterday, came out the day before, so it's fairly fresh. And I'm assuming that a lot of you guys have not seen it yet, so if you haven't seen it, I will heavily go into spoilers. I will just spoil every single scene, basically, so just leave the video right now, leave it behind, just click away, watch something else, watch a non-spoiler review, which sucks, by the way. All these non-spoiler reviews, seen them, they suck. So go watch the film, come back to this video, and then we can talk about what actually happened, because there's a lot that's going on. I'm going to go into spoilers now. It's the last chance, last warning for you to leave. Okay, you're gone? All right, so now that we've all seen the film, everyone who's listening now hopefully has seen the film. The opening is a fucking killer, isn't it? It's just like, it sucks you in so hard, and it's more like an epic ending scene of a film. Really cool space battle. Awesome, simple premise. You know, rebels on the planet try to evacuate Imperial or the New Order in space, trying to shoot on it. That's it, and it really works, sucks you in. I remember when it finished, I was like, fuck, awesome. That was really, really good. And then they talk a little bit about, the whole training thing between Rey and Luke on the island, which just picks up where 7 left off, really. I don't know. That whole scene, I wasn't really sold by. I did like it, but like in the first scene already, you know, the epic space battle where they had these slightly humorous scenes where they're talking from the bridge to that X-Wing pilot and they're like, oh, can he hear us? Can we hear? And it's like communication problems. It's trying to be funny. It actually was funny. It worked. But then Luke gets handed the sword, the lightsaber from Rey, his old lightsaber. He just throws it away. Yeah, I know, okay, it caught me unexpected. You know, I think most of us didn't see that coming. And I think most of us expected something slightly more epic, slightly something that does a little bit more justice to the whole epicness that the Jedi have. So I was a bit disappointed by that. And then we meet Luke, who's kind of a grumpy old character. What I liked about that is that he reminded me a lot about Yoda when he was on the island. You know, he also was like living in solitude for a long time, and he just, I don't want to say got a little bit mad, but I think he's just lost track a little bit of reality because he has not been in touch with reality for a very long time. So they all become a bit weird, and that happened to Luke as well, and he just becomes a bit odd. And then later we learn his backstory, why he has become so grumpy. I mean, at least a part of that is that he trained Kylo Ren, who then turned to the dark side, and we learn the story, how that came to be. But just sticking with Luke for a moment, I think the acting was fine. It didn't hit me, but Luke was a quite like nearly like a humorous character. That's how I perceived him. He wasn't very serious, at least not in the beginning, which, like I said, reminds me of the Yoda thing, which is a nice little touch to the old movies. But then it also kind of clashed a bit with my expectations, so I was torn apart. Then we meet a lot of new characters. I'm not going to go through the movie chronologically and go through every single scene. I'm just going to point out the highlights and maybe a little bit the downsides of things that I noticed as I was watching it. We get introduced to Admiral Leia, and there is the famous scene where Kylo Ren, well, what's famous? It's not famous, but I can imagine it will become like an epic scene in the future where Kylo already has the finger on the button and he knows his mother is in that ship and he doesn't push the button. It's the two fighters next to him that then shoot the rockets and blow her out into space. And I was like, all right, we all know Carrie Fisher unfortunately died recently, so this would be the place to probably let her go. You know, she's been in the new trilogy, she had her role, she played her part in a way. This would be the place. And I kind of drew a line under it at that point when I saw her being sucked out into space in that scene. But then they do something really weird, and you know what I'm talking about when you've seen the film. You can see her in space and her fingers start slightly moving while they get iced over and like just crackle with the coldness of space. And then she's moving and miraculously raises her hand and flies back towards. Fly is maybe the wrong word because you're in space. You're not literally flying. You're kind of just hovering back to the ship. And then she gets sucked in and brought to a med bay, and she's fine. Like later, there's another scene with her. She's fine. And that, even in the cinema, was like, From a story point of view, it felt a bit odd. I mean, we haven't seen what Leia Organa has been doing in the last 40, 30 years, whatever. Much time has passed since the last time she appeared. But it didn't feel right. I don't see her as this trained Jedi, right? Like as someone who can utilize the Force. Now, yes, you can argue that it's really intuitive, like she's a Skywalker, right? So she didn't even think about it. It just intuitively happened. She saved herself. But it just feels a little bit forced, if you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, okay, I guess, yeah, she just survived, okay. The next thing is that when she was seen in space and she was floating around, there were close-up shots of her face, and or shots where her face is clearly visible. And obviously that was a CGI version of Carrie Fisher, and it looked much more like the original Leia. You could see they modeled it after an old version, or how you would imagine an old Leia would look like, and not how Carrie Fisher actually looks like. So there was a bit of a clash there, right? And she just didn't look like the Carrie Fisher we've seen one scene before. You know, it was a little bit weird. The whole scene was a bit odd, right? And talking about Carrie Fisher, I think her performance was fine, and I really am hesitant to kind of talk about negative in any way, because I think her performance was fine. She fit in the role. It was just nice. For me, it was just nice to see these characters coming back together, right? In the first movie, The Force Awakens, where you see her and Han meeting, here is that scene where she meets Luke, and it is just nice. I know, I know that Disney is just selling me this crap. They're feeding it into me, but it is still nice because it is a part of my childhood, and I love to see these characters so many years later coming back together, being on the big screen again, and just kind of concluding the story nearly in a way. So I'm really happy that happened. Let me drink a sip of water, otherwise, you know what I mean. I sound like an ASMR video or whatever. Don't want to do that. So my point around Carrie Fisher's performance is that she has smoked a lot of cigarettes, and she probably has had a few drinks throughout her lifetime. I really don't want to judge. This is completely her thing, but it does affect her voice. It does affect her performance, and it does affect how much you can, or I can, immerse as a viewer into this character. I'm not judging her for anything. May she really, really rest in peace. Great actress, and she is Leia Organa. Nobody else could be this character. But I have to say, in the film, it took me out a few times where I was like, it does not make that much sense. I know, it's a subtle complaint. It's a very subtle complaint. And overall, I think she did a great job. And there were moments that were just, with the context that the actual actress, Carrie Fisher, is now not amongst the living anymore. Certain moments were just really, really emotional and heartbreaking, and just really, really touching, knowing the background in the real world, but then also in the Star Wars narrative and universe. So it's interesting, right, how that overlaps, how suddenly, because someone in the real world has died, it affects how you perceive a character, how you experience a performance in a movie. But I think there definitely were moments where it was very, very emotional and really drew me in. I think overall Carrie Fisher did a great job. Mark Hamill did a great job as well. Like I said, I think he did a great job in playing this kind of grumpy old Jedi who kind of wants to draw a line under everything and doesn't want to be a Jedi anymore, and doesn't want to train anyone. And I think that fitted him very, very well. Now let's talk a little bit about Rey and Finn and all these characters, and Poe that we've seen in the first one, in The Force Awakens. And again, I think great performances from all these people. Rey, amazing how she developed that character from the scavenger we've seen from the very first movie, The Force Awakens. It's not the very first movie. Don't give me those comments, okay? Don't even go there, honestly. The Force Awakens, how she developed the character from that scavenger we've seen on Jakku to that character that she is now. Amazing development. And I have to say the same for Kylo Ren. I love that scene quite in the beginning when Supreme Leader Snoke tells him to take off that ridiculous mask. And he's quite right, you know what I mean? Because all it is, it's just a ridiculous homage to Vader, and it shows what a child he actually is and tries to be Vader. He's wearing this mask and distorts his voice for absolutely no reason, right? It's just theater. So I get it, and I loved that moment because that was really like, oh, he's actually fucking right. Stop being a goddamn child, right? So loved that scene. He takes the mask off, and from then he doesn't really wear it again. I don't actually remember if there were single scenes where he was still wearing it later on, but he doesn't really wear it that much. And that's actually also where these kind of visions or these direct connections with Rey start, right? Which I loved as well, how they edited that together, that they didn't do like a version of Rey where she suddenly sees like a blue appearing Kylo Ren in the corner and then they communicate. Bullshit. You see both of them in their environments, but they communicate and they just cut from one environment to another as if it's the same room. That's brilliant. That's simple. I'm sure it's been done before, but that worked so well in that particular scene. Later, then there's this one scene where Skywalker comes in, or Luke comes in into this little hut, and she's actually sitting there when they touch, right? They touch their little fingers, and he just freaks out and the whole hut blows up, kind of. Obviously, we know that Rey is on a search for her parents, you know, where is she coming from? Why does she have these forces? And they seem to answer that question in this movie, where Kylo says, you always knew who your parents were, and I can tell you whatever, look deep inside of you, or whatever he says. And then it's basically he's saying that it's just some scavengers, some poor people that she was born the daughter to on Jakku, giving her existence, you know, or her family no meaning, basically. And it makes her obviously very sad. But why is there that connection? Why are they so in touch all the time, Kylo and Rey? I think the obvious theory would be that they're brother and sister and that they are both the daughter or the son of Leia Organa, which I think would probably be revealed at a later point in time. Can you hear the alarm? There's a car alarm outside. I apologize for that. I hope it's not too loud. But because remember in The Force Awakens, there was that scene where Rey meets Leia and they just meet and they look into each other's eyes as if they've known each other for their whole life, right? It is that feeling. And it was never really disclosed, at least not as far as I'm aware, why that happened. So I think maybe she just doesn't know yet, or she can kind of sense it. It's all a bit weird. But then also in the end of the movie, when Rey and Leia are kind of with a few other people, just nearly the only leftovers of the rebellion, it seems like then it's not like a daughter-mother relationship. It felt more like, you know, more like a professional relationship. So it's really weird, but it's a nice mystery they kind of give us for the next film. I personally do not believe, at the moment at least, the whole story that she's just a daughter of some scavengers. However, it would fit nicely with episode 1, where we don't really know how or who Anakin Skywalker's father was, right? He didn't really have a father, at least that's what we're told. So it might be a similar thing where the woman just got impregnated without really a father, and that though born Rey or something like this. I don't know, but it is a nice, you know, piece of the puzzle that I quite enjoy, that hasn't been fully solved yet. Now Finn, I feel Finn got a little bit lost in this film. I don't know why. Yes, he's then together with a new character, which is, I think she's called Rose, played by Kelly Marie. What's her name? I'm looking it up. Rose Tico, played by Kelly Marie Tran. I've heard a few videos or like a few reviews where people hated on that character. She didn't like her performance, found it too annoying, too kind of quirky. I thought it was nice. Honestly, I did enjoy it because I felt it was a very untypical character for a Star Wars movie, and that worked quite well. Just break it up a bit, you know, go your own way, put a character in there that is not like crazy scripted and wears an amazing outfit. No, it's just like this technician or whatever exactly her role was. It felt like she kind of randomly got drawn into the whole storyline. So I quite enjoyed it. But Finn, on the other hand, I didn't really feel. He had this epic fight with Captain Phasma, right? He kind of just stayed in the place where he was, and despite this fight obviously being really epic and looking awesome, there was no real development there, and I felt it was a little bit cut short. could have been more. The whole scene, which was quite controversial, where there's this giant walker and then the top gets ripped off in the end because it saves, Poe and the other guys. Turns out it's BB-8 inside and he's controlling the walker. That was a bit... I had like George Lucas flashbacks at that point. It was maybe a little bit far down the road. So there were a few of these scenes. Let me also talk about, I think, maybe the key scene of the movie, which is the confrontation between Rey and Snoke, and basically highlighting also the conflict that's still in Kylo, and it's the death of Snoke, right? So this epic fight is happening. Kylo decides to just start the lightsaber next to Snoke, cutting him in half with that, basically using his force. For miraculous reasons, Snoke didn't see that coming, right? The almighty Sith Lord God Snoke didn't see it coming that he will now kill him, or that he had the lightsaber next to him. So he just dies, and we learn nothing about them. All that speculation that was going on about Snoke and who it might be, what's the story behind this character. We might get that at a later point in time, but I think for now, it was just another emperor, right? So no story behind him. He's dead, and Kylo apparently at first glance does it to help Rey, and he's changed his mind. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting, right? So you would have these two quite powerful generals fighting against the First Order. But no, obviously they have to leave him on the dark side. So he then wants to convince Rey to join him, to rule the Empire, and he basically does the Vader thing. And I quite liked that, because again, it left me a little bit surprised, right? I didn't see that coming. It put a little twist on it in that moment where you first think he joins Rey, they fight back to back. And then actually it turns out he's only doing it to get into power and to, lead the First Order. Did I earlier say New Order? If I said New Order, forgive me, because it's obviously the First Order. New Order is a band. You should look that up. If you don't know the band New Order, look that up. Anyway, that he wants to take over the First Order and lead them into victory, meaning destroy all the rebels and rule the galaxy. And obviously he's on a personal mission. He wants to find Luke Skywalker. He wants to destroy Luke Skywalker. And later in the movie, you will kind of get a bit of a conclusion on that as well. And then there's this epic scene where this massive ship, how was it called? Goddamn, I forgot the name. You know what I mean. The giant super ship that is basically following the transport of the rebels. And both of them can't go faster than a certain speed for whatever reason. That drags on for an hour in the movie, that they just drift behind each other and just nothing happens, right? One can't destroy the shield of the other and the other one can't catch up. It's really a weird kind of, it feels artificially constructed moment. But then, single ships get drawn behind and then get destroyed. So it gets a bit of tension. But at that point, a new woman is in control. Vice Admiral Holdo, played by, Laura Dern, right? And then there's this back and forth, and she's kind of doing a horrible job, but she's a friend of Leia, who's still in a coma because of the space freezing thing. So she kind of screws the situation up. She stays on board, Leia wakes up, everyone else gets evacuated, and then she does this epic scene where she just travels at light speed through the giant ship it's basically the home ship of Snoke, and she just shoots through it like in a space arrow or something and cuts it in half. And it's an absolutely epic scene, beautifully shot, beautifully made, absolutely silent. There's no sound, at least in the moment when it happens. Beautiful. Loved that amazing epic scene. And I was actually also happy that character was gone, because I didn't like it too much. Now, one last thing before I come to a conclusion or some kind of overall opinion that I want to talk about is that Benicio del Toro plays a small role in this. Now, I didn't know this. I was completely, hit by surprise when I saw him there. And he plays kind of a smuggler, thief type character that Rose and Finn meet in jail, right? So I liked it, but it was Benicio del Toro, and somehow, all these other actors that you see in these Star Wars films are kind of new actors, right? I had never seen Daisy Ridley before. I had never seen any of the other actors that you see in the film before, whether it's Adam Driver, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac. But for some reason, seeing Benicio del Toro there took me a little bit out. I did like his character. I think he did a great job. He's a great actor. I love nearly everything that he plays. He just has this great, whatever attitude that he brings to every role. Really, really nicely played. But still, it was another piece of the puzzle that didn't really 100% fit in, if you know what I mean. You had to fudge the edges a little bit of that puzzle piece to fit in. And if you listen to my review up to this point, then you probably heard that there are quite a few points that gave me hiccups like that just weren't completely right, where they went a bit too far with the humor, they went a bit too far with other things. Actually, let me just take one step back and lose a few words. I want to keep this really short, but just on the final battle scene between Luke and Kylo, and how that all happens on this planet with the Red Earth. We all know what I'm talking about. So, first of all, they have this new AT-ATs. I have no idea how they're called, but they look like gorillas. They're cool, but why not just use the ones we have already? Why do we need to reinvent it? And why do they now need to move like a freaking gorilla? Maybe I'm too skeptical. Maybe I'm just an old grumpy man, but I don't really see the purpose in it. Then there was the scene where Luke comes out, and obviously also like the hero scene of Rose and Finn, where they're basically flying towards this giant cannon, and then Rose saves Finn, and then you think she's dead, but she's not, and we can see a lot of drama coming up there, because obviously Rose is totally in love with Finn, but Finn is totally in love with Rey, so I can see a lot of drama coming up there. Then there's the scene where Luke comes out through the hole that they shoot with a cannon, and he confronts Kylo, and he just puts this massive barrage on him. Everything flies up. Looks pretty cool. I like that. I think that was epic. But then he comes out, nothing happens. He just cleans his shoulder. It's a cool scene, and you're like, holy shit, how do you do that? How can you survive all that? I mean, yeah, you're a Jedi and all that, but seems a bit too much. And then he actually fights Kylo, and it's a great final scene. I loved it. Turns out, you've seen it, Luke is not actually there. He's meditating on the island, and he's actually projecting himself to be there to fight Kylo as a kind of distraction. It's not entirely clear whether that was intentional to be a distraction, but I think it's if you've seen it, it's obvious that he just distracted them so the others can get away. And it's a really, really cool fight scene, and a nice battle between those two characters. And then also the reveal how Kylo hits him with a lightsaber and just goes right through him, and he's like, this can't be right, what is this? And he finds out it's just a projection. Epic. We can then see Luke meditating, kind of collapsing, because that was very exhausting to him on the rock that he was meditating on. And then they're basically doing the same thing that they did with Obi-Wan, where it just collapses into his dress. He's not dead. He disappeared. He moved on to another realm. But it's nice. I liked it. And I also liked that they did this really hard cut, or like a bit of an homage in the cut of where the cloth just falls to the ground. It was very reminiscent of the Obi-Wan scene. I liked it. And it felt right. You can say what you want. It would have been nice as well if he dies in a battle with Kylo Ren. Could have been cool, but you don't want a character like Luke Skywalker to be killed from someone like Kylo Ren, who in all honesty is just a kid. This character is just this kind of angry kid who has too much power. So I think that was good. I think that brought a nice conclusion to the film in a way that he died as well. And let's be honest here, we don't want to see Mark Hamill headlining all these new Star Wars films. It is good they are killing these characters off. Princess Leia stayed alive. She will be probably in the next film somehow. I don't know if they have kind of footage that they shot with her before she passed away. How they're going to bridge that gap into the next film. Maybe because remember the very last scene of the film where you see the little boy looking up into the sky, and then he has this ring that has the Rebellion's logo on it, and he gets treated very bad by his owner, and it just shows that there's a new generation of rebels growing already. And I wonder whether that is a little hint towards the next episode 9, happening maybe 20 years after the current episode, or when all these kids are or 15 years or something like this, when all these kids have grown up and a bit of time has passed. Kylo has established his role as the new leader of the First Order or whatever, and that would then also maybe explain, maybe the next text that we see in the beginning of the Star Wars film. I know it has a name. I forgot the name. The text that rolls up in the beginning, the yellow copy. It just says Admiral Leia Organa has died or something. It's been 20 years. She's died in a battle. I don't think that they will let go that character that easily, but it really depends what footage they have. I don't think they can re-CGI her, and also not at this point, out of respect for her family and respect for herself, basically. You can't just CGI that character. So I wonder how they're gonna solve that in the next film. It remains to be seen. But it's ironic that Luke dies and Leia lives. So, in conclusion, and I'm sure I'll, once I've recorded this video, once I've put it online, I'm gonna come up with 20 scenes in the evening where I'm like, fuck, I forgot to talk about this. I didn't talk about this. In conclusion, do I think that The Last Jedi was a good Star Wars film? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I tell you why I think it was. It was a bit convoluted. It was a bit messy at parts. There were scenes that wouldn't have need to be there. I think, in my opinion, a lot of the parts with Finn were not very well woven in. It just felt disconnected. It felt weird. Overall, it was just a bit messy. It was trying to be funny at one point and then a bit serious at another point, and then there were too many characters. One thing that I really loved about the first one, The Force Awakens, was the clarity of the story and the characters. It was that simple. It worked really, really well. Yes, you can argue we've seen it before, but it still worked nonetheless very well in this movie. So I felt in this new one, The Last Jedi, there are too many characters, too many stories happening at the same time, too many locations going on, and it got a bit convoluted. However, I think it's a good Star Wars movie because it moves the franchise forward. It tries new things, it introduces untypical characters, it is humorous, it is a bit controversial. It is a new take on a Star Wars film that is trying to let go of all these old things we've seen in the old trilogies and create something new, which obviously is heavily based on it, but grow out of it, become its own franchise. And I had the feeling that's what they were trying to do. And I think it worked. I was highly entertained. I loved the film. I think it was great. And I think they developed these characters in unexpected ways. It might not be, the stereotype firework, if you look at it from today's perspective, that we've seen in the old trilogy, episode 4 to 6. Obviously, it can't be that simple, and it can't work like these movies did. So they have to do something different, and I think they did a good job at it, and it felt right. Like I said, I was entertained, and it leaves me hungry for more, right? I want to see the next one. I'm curious how they're going to develop it further. I'm not disappointed. Everyone has to just realize when watching a Star Wars film in 2017 or any year, we have to realize that these films will not compete or live up to the expectations that you have to the old movies. You will not be able to recreate that magic. It is literally impossible. So all we can do is try to create something new that we also love, right? And that is still really, really well done and makes sense and is lovable. And I think they're doing a good job at that. And I can understand why some people may not appreciate the film. Maybe it's too controversial. It's deriving too far from what we expected. Maybe it is too humorous. Maybe not every element in the movie is really coherent, right? The scene in the end where Rey just suddenly appears with Chewbacca on the Millennium Falcon, and it's really, really weird how she got there. That we've never seen her escaping from this base and all that. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. There are these moments, yes, but I am willing to forgive it. It was a good movie, and these guys are doing a good job. And I have to reward people who have the balls, to change something in a franchise like Star Wars. To come forward and literally say, look, we're going to do this. We have to do it. It's the right step. And come forward with these really bold decisions, whether it's about the humor or whether it's about some other aspects of the film that are controversial that I spoke about. Maybe not everyone likes it. I think it's great, and I reward and I applaud it for being different and for trying something new without being super offensive like maybe, episode 2 was or something. I hate episode 2. It's probably the worst Star Wars film in existence after the Christmas special. But The Last Jedi tries something new. It tries something fresh without breaking this universe apart and turning into something that it's not. It was well done, and I enjoyed the film. Guys, I have talked for what feels like 8 hours now about this film, and I would like to hear your thoughts. Honestly, if you made it to this point, then please share your thoughts down in the comment section below, because I think it's a controversial film. I've seen on Twitter a lot of people ranting against it, a lot of people giving it 5-star reviews. Maybe I wouldn't go that far. You know, I wouldn't give it 5 stars, but it was a great film. Let me check. On IMDb, we are at an 8.1 right now. I think a 7.9 would do it too, or maybe an 8. It is roughly fair. It is fair. You know, an 8.1 at the current point in time, today is the 15th of December 2017. An 8.1 is all right. We can live with that. But go watch it, you know. But if you ask me if it's the best Star Wars film I've ever seen in my life, I don't know. I would have to think about that. I don't know. I'm not going to answer that right now. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think about The Last Jedi? Be honest. If you have a complete different opinion than me, then that's totally fine. You know, I respect everyone for their opinion. Also, let me know what your favorite Star Wars movie is down in the comment section below. Is it one of the older ones? Is it maybe, don't know, Episode 1? You a fan of the pod racers? I don't know. Let me know down in the comment section below. And then, if you like it, and if you leave me a little like, then I may do another video where I talk about the other Star Wars movies. Maybe about the franchise as a whole. I don't know yet. Share your thoughts down in the comment section. Subscribe if you have not yet done that. Guys, I wish you a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I see you around soon. Take care. I'm out. Bye.